appreciate it. Okay, Jim Barker joins us now with so much to get to, Coach. What did you hear or think when you heard that Pete Carroll's going to the Raiders?
I wasn't shocked because I thought he was going to end up with Dallas. Honestly, the Raiders kind of surprised me, but he's a guy he's just got so much energy, and you look at him, he doesn't look like he's 73. He looks like he's in his 50s. I mean, his energy abounds. I've known him since he was at UOP back at University of the Pacific, where they don't even play football anymore. He's been a true ball coach, like what you were talking about that George was talking about. Pete Carroll has been that. Now, once he got to that stage where he was the head coach at USC and then the head coach in Seattle, obviously your movement slows down, but your money goes up. And that's probably the only difference between now and when George and I were coming through. It's the money isn't the same now as it was. Back then the money was bad. It was not great. Yet you had all the things you're talking about, the problems with, with being a coach. I was getting married, and Mike Holmgren was on our staff, and we worked for an old guy named Vic Rowan. And Vic said, you're never going to make it in this business if you get married. And Mike was married with 2 kids. And I said, Mike, do you think that's true? And he said, you know what? What it is really the luck of where you go. He says, if you work for the right people, it can work. If you don't get lucky and do that, then it can become difficult. And, at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to. I wanted to coach as high as I could, but I would have been happy, which I did for a long time. I was a college professor at small colleges, and I was also a head baseball coach at Pomona Pitzer colleges. And I enjoyed it. I just enjoyed that whole small college environment. I was at Occidental College where Jim Mora went. And, so that I was happy with that. And then I went to the CFL. I'd had a couple of Division I jobs. But you're absolutely right. It's very difficult on a family. You have to sacrifice to become good at anything. And I was never as good a husband as I should have been. Again, I don't think I was as good a father as, I should have been. It was a decision I made to go into this. But anything that's worthwhile, you're going to sacrifice. And I sacrificed them. Unfortunately, you look back on things, you say, maybe I would do things differently. The girls, they're excited about the life they had. They went to high school in Quebec. Kate still talks. She was in grade 9. Matthew Lombardi sat right behind her in class and was just, would cut up. And, and kids getting a chance to do that, to live in different cultures, is a great thing. And they appreciate that. They didn't appreciate it much at the time, and they were moving all the time. But now they look back and they appreciate it. But it's a difficult lifestyle, Rod.
Just so you know, I'll say all the exact same things you just said about my career. So, it can be cool, but Dad's not home a lot. It's tough, and it doesn't feel real good. But by the way, hey, you said the U of P, University of the Pacific. Alan Ford went there, the great Rough Riders general manager, where he met his beautiful wife, Sally. So, to me, that's Al Ford made that school famous, too.
There you go.
Can I just ask you about the Cowboys coach? Do you have any leaning on who it'll be?
I think it's going to be one of two. I think it's going to be Brian Schottenheimer, or it's going to be Kellen Moore. It's going to be somebody that Jerry Jones is comfortable with, that he basically is there. That's why I thought Pete Carroll might be a good fit there, because Pete is a football coach. He doesn't want to have anything to do with personnel. He never has. John Schneider, when he was in Seattle, always did all that. That's what he is. Belichick, he would dabble in the personnel things, but again, more of just a straight football coach. And with Pete being that way, that would have fit in with what Jerry Jones wants. He doesn't want someone who has a lot of opinions on personnel. He wants you to take the guys that he gives you and coach them. So I just think that Jerry Jones is going to hire a guy that he knows. And Brian Schottenheimer's on the staff now. That's he's a guy who has not, had his big shot yet. And then Kellen Moore is a guy that everybody loves. He played quarterback at Boise State, and then was a quarterback coach in Dallas, and backup quarterback, then became the quarterback coach, and then coordinated there. Now he's with Philadelphia. And so he's, the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. And I think I think it's going to be him or Brian Schottenheimer, because I think it's going to be somebody Jerry Jones knows he can, be happy with, that understands him, that knows him. And I think that's important to him.
Somebody that will stay in their lane and know their role. Code. Okay, the conference championships are this weekend. As you know, Washington, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Kansas City. What do you expect?
Well, last week I said all the home teams would win, and I really was surprised by Washington and how they played, and how, Detroit, they played like they were tight, like they were nervous, like they were everything that they haven't been with Dan Campbell. They played that way. It was really kind of bizarre to watch. And now the whole thing will start over with new coordinators, and they'll have a new coordinator on both sides, and everything's going to be new there. So it's going to be interesting to watch them try to get back to where they were in terms of that whole mentality of Dan Campbell can make no wrong calls. Well, they made a few of them that were just brutal calls, I thought, the coaching staff. I mean, that pass when they had Jamison Williams try to throw that pass to get back in the game, it was nonsensical. This week, again, I'm going to go the opposite direction, and I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills to beat Kansas City. Kansas City is the perfect football team. That's how they've made it. They just don't make mistakes. They're never going to beat themselves. You're going to have to go out and beat their team. Now, are they lacking some things? Sure. They're lacking an offensive tackle, I think. They're lacking some, they've got some people hurt in their secondary, although I think they're getting them back. But for the most part, they're the perfect football team. They don't ever make mistakes. I don't think they've had a turnover in 9 games or so. It's something ridiculous. I mean, it's just they're never going to beat themselves. And Buffalo, they have a tendency, they could do that. But I also think Buffalo has this, I think Buffalo's been playing for one game all year, and that's this one. That's Kansas City. And it may be tough for them if they go to the Super Bowl, but because this kind of like that Minnesota-Detroit game and what this game will take out of Buffalo to get there. But I think this is the game that means everything to Buffalo, and has, because they have not been able to get by Kansas City. They beat them in the regular season, but when the game's on the line, they can't get it done. And a lot of that is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if he's got the ball at the end of the game with a chance to win or needs a touchdown to tie, he finds a way to do it. The guy is absolutely magic that way. So, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. And in the other one, Philadelphia is a 6.5 point favorite, which I thought what Washington did to Detroit, they went into Detroit, which is not an easy place to play. They played with great confidence. Jaden Daniels played like way beyond his years, did not make mistakes. He hasn't turned the ball over in the playoffs. I didn't think they had enough playmakers. They have McLaurin, they have Ertz, but I didn't think they had enough playmakers to hang even close with Detroit. And yet they did. And guys made plays that, you hadn't heard of. And their defense, Dan Quinn is to the defense in Washington what Dan Campbell is to the offense in Detroit. We're going to be physical. We're going to do this. Well, Dan Quinn is a defensive genius. And if anybody could say, okay, you know what, we're going to stop. They might beat us with Jalen Hurts throwing the ball, but we're going to take Saquon Barkley and we are going to stop. Now, nobody's done it, but Dan Quinn, I would give him an opportunity to potentially do that. And if he can do that and take Saquon Barkley and quiet him down and make Jalen Hurts beat them, I think that Washington can beat Philadelphia. So I'm going to take the 2 underdogs this week.
Well, and here's the thing. Every single one of these games has come down to turnovers. Whoever's won the turnover battle has won the game. And you said you prefer coaching to personnel. So, Coach, can you coach to eliminate turnovers? This is the biggest stage. How do you do it?
Wow, that's a great question. Nobody wants to turn the ball over. I think it's consistently staying in their head. I think you're, just little as you're walking along the sidelines, we're hanging on to the ball. Hey, we're hanging on to the ball, and it's just in their head all the time that we can't turn the ball over. And then the mentality of your quarterback. I think Josh Allen has come a long way in that sense. There was a play where he was getting tackled, and I think he was going to try to pitch it back and make the miraculous play. But he's grown up. I felt when I watched that play, I'm like, wow, last year he would have tried that. He'd have pitched that back. Maybe he would have pitched it and the guy would have gone for a touchdown and it would have been this great play. But he doesn't need to do that anymore. He's that good of a player. Take another snap and you've got just as good a chance as doing the miraculous play. So he's not trying to do the miraculous play. You have to have a quarterback that understands we don't have to win it on this play. And that's what's been so impressive about Jaden Daniels. And that's Patrick Mahomes gets it. He understands it. He's not putting the ball up in harm's way. He's just not doing it. And again, it becomes a mentality on your football team of just you're talking about it, and because you have to consciously, when you're going for extra yards, it has to hit your head before getting that extra yard. Is make sure I secure the ball because they're coming for it. Now that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you're thinking about I got to get to that first down marker, and not thinking about I got to hold on to the ball. But if you've been drilled all the time, and maybe even that game in the huddle, hey, we're hanging on to it might be a tight end or an offensive lineman. Hey guys, hanging on to the ball. We're hanging on to the ball. We're hanging on to the ball. You hear that enough, you're going to hang on to the ball. And I just think that's the only way you can really coach it. I know for me, one of the big things for me was special teams penalties. And the last thing I would tell the team every time before we went out was take no special teams penalties. Don't block them if you don't have the angle. No special teams penalties. And they heard that every time before we went out. I think the only way you can coach something is you have to build it in. And a lot of teams will do drills to drill, like the drill of spinning on the hand. Well, that's also a control the ball because you're focusing on trying to keep your balance with the hand on the ground. But, doing that drill with having somebody trying to hit the ball is a great drill for eliminating turnovers, because turnovers happen when your mind goes to making another yard, breaking a tackle, doing something else. Or I can make this play. I can make this throw, and we need this. And then you throw the interception. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to turnovers. I think you got 4 teams that get that. And they're going to be great games. I can't wait for Buffalo. Kansas City's maybe the game of the century. It's a huge, huge, huge game. To me, the Super Bowl becomes anticlimactic. That's the game. Can Buffalo win that game? That to me is the interesting thing.
And by the way, just a footnote on all of that. I'm glad I asked about the turnovers. George said that drill was not about balance. It was about protecting the ball, right? Which is what you just said. So I appreciate that, Jim. This has been fun. Well, we got.
Oh, I want to give you a name.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to give you a name for your Mount Rushmore that nobody has heard in Canada except for Gary Echeverry. Jim Healy. Got to get off the air. He was a classic. Jim Healy. Check him out. He was growing up. He was absolutely the best. Echeverry and I we'd see each other and say, "Oh, did you hear Healy last night?" And he was fantastic. And he had all these little blurbs like, "We got to get off the air," and "This show sucks." Oh, Howard Cosell doing, "This show sucks." And he would just do these blurbs. It was just hilarious. But
LA
yeah,
guy?
in Los Angeles. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Jim Healy. He
love it.
died, I think, in 95 or so. But yeah, and up here, Mike Richards. I'm going to put Mike Richards in that, who was in Calgary when I was there.
Ooh.
So there's one for you.
Yeah, hey, good stuff, man. Mike was just on this week. He belongs on the Mount Rushmore, there's no doubt. All right, Coach, appreciate it. Enjoy the ball. We'll talk to you.
All right. Take care.
Five-time Grey Cup champion Jim Barker, and if he keeps it up, he's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of sports talk people. We'll be right back with a sports update and viewer takeover at the Football Friday. We are streaming live, also on Game Plus Television and podcasts, wherever the best podcasts are found.